There's a joke. It's not very funny, but it's like, you know what the 3 largest cities in Mississippi are?
What's that?
It's Memphis, Mobile, and New Orleans.
How? How? Them ain't even in Mississippi. How?
The greatest adventure is what lies ahead. Today and tomorrow are yet to be said. The chances, the changes are all yours to make. The mold of your life is in your hands to break. The greatest adventure is there if you're bold.
Hello, folks. Thank you for listening. E Pluribus Book Club. I'm your host for this episode. My name is Ansel.
I'm Elijah.
And I'm Dylan.
So the book that we're talking about today is it's a classic. I think maybe a modern classic since it was written within the last 100 years.
It's the greatest adventure.
The greatest adventure. Of course, it's The Hobbit or There and Back Again. Now, let's talk the film adaptation of it.
Well, before we get to that, I just kind of want to say, like, Gandalf is kind of like he's not a very powerful wizard. Like,
yeah, he gets wounded in the Battle of the Five Armies.
Yeah, like he lights some pine cones on fire.
Yeah, for real.
Like he makes some flashing light. Like he does strike a few goblins dead with like flashing lights. But I mean, when you think about like he's supposedly like this demigod like wizard. But I mean his powers are kind of underwhelming.
I'm just gonna bring you back to earlier in the book where he makes the fucking sun come up early.
No,
right?
I don't think. No,
yes.
Okay. I think he covered the sunlight more than he made the sun come up early, and he kept him arguing. He kept throwing his voice.
Do not take him for a conjurer of cheap tricks.
No, I think that's what that was because he was able to like keep the sunlight out of the area while they kept arguing. And when they had agreed on what to do, like how to cook them. He would say, "Well, we gotta get the water. It's your turn to get the water," or something like that. And then there was like, "Who said that?" It was like, "It's not my turn to get the water." And they just keep arguing and arguing and arguing. And then he says, then he reveals himself and drops the cloth or like the shroud that's keeping the light out. And that's how I read it. But
yeah,
again,
that's a cheap trick. That's a cheap trick. He made the fucking sun come up early. He's Gandalf the Grey in this book, by the way. He's not Gandalf the White. You can't judge him for what he does in his gray cloak. He's old.
I mean, he's still my favorite character, I would say. Like, I didn't take a liking to any of the dwarves. Gandalf is probably my favorite character.
My favorite character in The Hobbit is Legolas.
God damn
All
it.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about the movie.
Legolas is not in The Hobbit.
Okay. Let's open that can of worms. Obviously, I like the movies very much.
Why?
No, I'm just
I
kidding.
want you to defend that position to begin with.
I actually don't like the movies, but I do think that there are some things that they did very well in the movies. I've only seen each of them one time. Okay.
Yeah, that was enough for me as well.
I don't. If I say it should have been a certain way, like I feel like, well, how could they possibly have done that? And I'll give you some examples. One of my complaints about the book, and probably my main criticism of it, is that there are no women in this book at all. Like there's not a single female character. Period. And so if you're adapting that, like that is completely incompatible with 21st century mores and whatnot. So I see where you would have to create a character to make it to adjust for what I would think is an error on Tolkien's part by not including any women characters.
But even then, like the movies, I would say don't pass the Bechdel test.
They still don't, but it's better than the book for sure. Okay, so that's one thing. That's one defense of the book. The other thing is, like,
It's one
You know,
defense of the movie, but yeah.
or yeah, that's what I meant. One defense of the movie. The other thing is that
Yeah, I got you.
the okay, so this is following the Lord of the Rings, where you've really established these characters. And my main complaint about the movie is that it tries to incorporate the tone of the Lord of the Rings when the tone of the book is sort of more childlike and more I don't know what's the word more it's on the tip of my tongue, but like, you know, more
jovial,
like
more.
The circumstances are less grave.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the Lord of the Rings is a battle for like all of existence,
Right.
While the Hobbit is just
a search for treasure.
Yeah, it's a treasure quest.
So, like, I wish that they had taken that into account in the movies and just made a single movie, or maybe or two at most. And I liked Guillermo del Toro as the original director, like having his take on it and everything. But it just kind of fell to crap. But I get why they had to sort of keep parts of the tone, because you have like the Gollum character, Andy Serkis in The Lord of the Rings. You basically had to have the Andy Serkis character in that movie, and also the older Bilbo. You kind of had to have him there, otherwise people would have been pissed off about that. And so when you bring those characters in, you kind of have to retain the tone of it too, I feel like. So I guess I get like, and you know, they kind of offset that with the barrel jumping and stuff. They try to keep it like fun and lighthearted. But yeah, so I'm not as hard on the movies as y'all are, but yeah, I don't like them so much. But I do think there are some things that they did very well, particularly the Riddles in the Dark section, Smog, you know, leaving the mountain and devouring Lake Town. I thought was great.
I think Martin Freeman played a very good Bilbo.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't just 100% hate the movie, but having said that, I'm going to shut up and listen to you guys talk about the movie.
Go ahead, Dylan. I can't even.
Well, Ansel kind of touched on this a little bit. Like the most egregious thing is that they stretched it out into 3 movies. Like, it's such an obvious, shameless cash grab.
Yeah.
And they had to add in all this other bullshit that wasn't in the books in order to make it 3 movies worth of content. Like, this book isn't very long. It's not a very long story. And yeah, like I'm guessing the studio is just like, hey, let's make it 3 movies. Like, I think 2 would have been fine, like you said. Like,
by the way, whimsical was the word I was looking for a while ago.
Oh, nice. Good pull.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's the most egregious thing. We were talking about it a little bit earlier. Like, Legolas being in the movie doesn't bother me that much. Like, he was part of the kingdom of elves in Mirkwood, so I could see why you would tie him in. But the love story between what's her name and the dwarf, that was kind of ridiculous. And yeah, I actually didn't watch the last movie at all. I was kind of done after the second movie.
Yeah, I watched the third one like probably a couple years after it came out, but I think I had drunk way too much and I don't really remember anything about it. So that happens sometimes. Anyway.
All right.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, Dylan.
I let Dylan go first because I figured he would take some things out to save us some time.
Yep.
Go off, King.
Jesus Christ. There's no women in The Hobbit at all. Too bad.
No.
I'm sorry. You if you want to hold it up to today's standards, that's fine. But you're holding up a novel from 1930 written by a World War I veteran for his children as a fairy tale.
Let me finish.
I gave you your time.
I always reject that argument every time. Like, there's no. I mean,
there's no need to reject that argument.
There were women characters in books back then. It's like it's just like the
of
thing,
course there
like,
were
people like apologists for slavery in the 18th century are like, well, everybody had slaves. Like, dude, there were abolitionists too. Like, that doesn't,
I didn't say I agree with it. I did not say I agree with it. What I'm saying is that does not give you free license to create a character to make an adaptation of one of the most beloved novels of all time. Whether you agree with it or not, that sort of artistic license is not allowed.
But this
that
is
should
Hollywood.
not be allowed. Secondly, you know what? The big old F to Hollywood.
Okay,
and I've got something for them as well.
These could adversely affect these kinds of decisions could adversely affect people's careers if they
You know what?
if they choose to go forward on this project that has no women.
Then don't do it. Then don't do it.
Okay, yeah, I agree with
Then
that.
don't do it. Then stay the fuck away from it. Do not do it. Secondly, after The Lord of the Rings, especially the extended version, after something so beautiful and so well done and so painstakingly crafted to where every little nuanced thing that they had to leave out of the book was chosen to be left out of the book as something that was maybe there in the background, like The Lord of the Rings, there's not been films better than those made since they were made, and I don't think before they were made. That the Peter Jackson's crowning achievement is one of the crowning achievements of motion picture history, and then to follow that up with the absolute Six Flags ride bullshit that is the Hobbit trilogy, you can suck it. I tell you what, they created a goddamn enemy to chase these people around for 3 fucking movies. That's not in the book. They put characters from The Lord of the Rings. You don't your argument about Gollum having to be Gollum, fine. Gollum was great as Gollum in both because it's Gollum. You don't have to do anything to match that mood for Gollum. Gollum shows up, you've got the Gollum mood. Okay? It's what they did was such a blatant, horrible cash grab that every time like I'm flipping through the channels and I see that it's on or something, I get visibly angry. I get to where I shake about how they trashed it. If you wanted to do one film, and let's say I would even forgive such things as adding Legolas, which I don't, then okay. But this is it's not acceptable, and to me it's not even. You can't make a calendar out of the
dwarves. Like you have to have Legolas.
Well, here's the thing.
Like, for the
this is one of
merchandising.
this is exactly this is what I'm saying. This comes down to Hollywood and their absolute just lack of the ability to produce art anymore, that it's become such a business that it physically makes me sick. And I've got an article here. I'm not going to read the entire article because it's long, yeah? And this article has nothing to do with The Lord of the Rings. This is by a Scott Mendelson for Forbes magazine, and he writes, I covered the film industry under his name. I'm like, shut up. He's talking about the new Dune film that is coming out, being directed by Denis. Help me, Dylan. You speak French.
Villeneuve.
Thank you. Perfect. Talking about, we've got some more stars who are on board, and yes, it's going to be a two film series now, apparently. But this whole article is about budget, okay? Dune is a groundbreaking novel, one that inspired much of the sci-fi that came after it. Blah, 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 blah. But will general audiences care? There's a long history of movies that were much buzzed about online, only to play to comparatively empty theaters. Think Kick-Ass, which did an okay $98 million worldwide, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, Dredd, Judge Carter, Edge of Tomorrow, which earned a fine $370 million, but with a $175 million budget, or Blade Runner 2049. Yes, come what may, a major studio is again giving Villeneuve potentially gobs of money to make a big-budget sci-fi spectacle based on a cult sci-fi property whose previous movie was a massive flop. He goes on. Blade Runner 2049 was a critically acclaimed sequel to a cult flop and earned just $259 million on a, depending on who you ask, $150 million to $185 million budget. David Lynch's Dune earned poor reviews and grossed just $31 million domestic on a $40 million budget back in 1984. Now, I'm going to stop right there for a second because this is illustrating my point here. Ask me if I give a shit how much money the Lord of the Rings movies made.
Do you give a shit how much the Lord of the Rings movies made?
Surprisingly, the answer to that question is no. They are well done. Do I give a shit how much the Hobbit movies made? Yes, because they're garbage and deserve none of it. If you're making a film and you're making it on a beloved classic, here he mentions Dune, okay? This is not the first time someone's taken and making a theatrical version of Dune. If you're doing this, it's got to be right. It's got to be right. You can't, and we're seeing the same thing with these, I'm not one of these Star Wars fans that hates the new films, right? I give them credit. They're decent. But, I mean, you if you're working on hallowed ground like Lord of the Rings, Dune, and I may be called a fanboy, I may be called a nerd for this, but you better you better bring your stuff.
You better bring your stuff. I don't know.
You better bring your stuff. And this comes down to
about anything, I guess.
This comes down to this whole article is about how much they spent in budget and how much money they're going to give them to make these Dune films, and that it's going to be a box office flop like he taught, like Blade Runner 2049. Now, if you've seen Blade Runner 2049, and even if you're not a fan of the original Blade Runner, I would think you would have to admit that movie is a piece of art.
Yeah,
it's not a movie made to bring in the big box office bucks, and yet I think it's doing fairly well after. Yeah, well. Yeah, Mama's Family's better than the Hobbit trilogy.
And what is wrong with Mama's Family, good sir?
Nothing's better than the Hobbit trilogy. That's what I'm saying. No one gives a shit about how much box office money they pulled in. That movie will have fans talking about it for the next 100 years. It is the cult classics that go on living. You can't tell me what the number one grossing movie at the box office last year was. It was probably something stupid anyway. You can't tell me what the number one grossing movie of 2010 at the box office was, but you can tell me exactly what Rocky Horror Picture Show is, even if you haven't seen it. You can tell me exactly who directed the 1984 Dune film that was a terrible, terrible mishap. You can tell me because it's a cult classic. Those are the things that stay around. Those are the things that last forever. This guy goes on and says, it's not like folks have been clamoring for the Paul Atreides story. They didn't even care when a Han Solo movie with Star Wars slapped on the title came out. That being said, if it appears to be visually compelling and halfway decent, yes, I'm the dolt who disliked Blade Runner, but I can admit I'm in the minority. The key to even potential success for Legendary, which is like, I don't know, their production company, and presumably considering their recent reunion Warner Brothers, lies in two factors. First, I hope they're learning the lesson and not spending $155 million on this picture. You know what? Fuck this guy. Forbes magazine ought to tell you enough. But this guy, this is going to be a box office flop. It's going to cost these companies money, and it should. It should cost them money to produce a good piece of art. It totally should cost them money, and they can have mine when it comes out. Because I am 100% confident it's going to be the best screen adaptation attempt at Dune.
Well, I mean,
and there may not be another one.
That remains to be seen, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think it does. Look at Blade Runner 2049. I don't think it does. Look at what he did with that film. That film is beautiful. And the novels for Dune are beautiful.
That's like seeing Eraserhead like in 1983 or whatever. I don't know when any of David Lynch's movies came out and saying like, well, Eraserhead was so good. I know this Dune movie is going to be the tits. It remains to be seen. I'm excited about the Dune adaptation. I hope it's very good.
I think it probably will be, but yeah, that remains to be seen. I don't hate like David Lynch. Like I feel like anything with canon, David Lynch doesn't need to be around it because he has no regard for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think like if you take it as its own piece, I think the David Lynch Dune movie's great. I like it.
When was the last time you saw it? Like
it's been a few years.
Yeah,
but
it doesn't hold up.
It's a silly movie. It's very silly.
It's ridiculous.
Elijah, I want to push back on one thing you're talking about there.
No, don't. Just don't. Don't.
Well, no. You're
just let it stand.
Your blind praise of the Lord of the Rings trilogy is a little misplaced. They left out.
Okay.
Key things in that story
Are you talking about Bill the Pony?
Tom Bombadil. Where's Tom Bombadil?
Tom Bombadil
And his wife Dewberry.
The encounter with the old willow, the encounter with the Barrow Wights, and really my favorite part.
The old willow is in there.
It must be like
the old
an extended
Willow's,
edition.
Yes, I don't think it's
the old willow swallows
version.
them up.
Okay, but the Barrow Wights for sure isn't in the extended edition.
Barrow Wights were taken out.
My favorite part about the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy was the scouring of the Shire, when the four hobbits go back and Saruman is propped up in the Shire with the old Wormtongue, and they've turned it into an industrial wasteland, and the four hobbits have to raise the good folk in rebellion against Saruman, and like that. No, they kill Saruman in the Two Towers in the extended edition.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that just needs to go on the record saying that I agree. The Lord of the Rings movies were very good. They were very good adaptations, but
they're fan-fucking-tastic.
They did miss a few things that I felt should not have.
They
been
absolutely did. And if you watch the extended cuts, they explain why they changed those things and why they didn't feel that they really felt what they were going for to tell the complete story of the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I too thought the Lord of the Rings adaptations were very good, especially the Two Towers. I thought was amazing. I think that's the only movie I've ever seen twice in a movie theater. Like I saw it and I'm like, I gotta take that ride again.
Yeah,
I've definitely watched the most too on home media. Two Towers all the way.
Yeah. They were all just amazing films. But then you get the Splash Mountain of Middle Earth, which is the Hobbit, and the Splash Mountain is a giant dwarf made of liquid gold.
Oh, one thing I also wanted to say
the Lake
about
Man Bard's three children that don't exist, and son of a bitch. Yeah, go ahead.
One thing I wanted to say about the Hobbit movies, like they really missed like the visual of Thorin. Like Thorin just looks like a dude.
Yeah.
And like that's something in Lord of the Rings they nailed. Like Gimli is absolutely what a dwarf should look and act like. And then Thorin, like he doesn't even have like a long beard. Like he's just got like
a
5 o'clock shadow and
he looks like Jason Momoa.
The first red flag for the Hobbit.
Looks
I
like
didn't think about
Aquaman.
this till you said it, but like his last name is Oakenshield, and that's just his last name in the book. But in the movie, they're like, he was down to his last last breath, and he picked up a piece of oak and used it as a shield. I'm like, no, you don't have to do that.
No,
Stop
he didn't. No, he didn't.
It's just his name.
I can't do it anymore. Blood pressure's going up. We gotta stop.
The three,
the
three siblings.
I need a smoke. I need a cigarette.
Gathered together in a crowd to perform their book clubs and became known as Crowder.
Right.
Let's do ratings in this thing. I gotta
end this.
I gotta roll. I gotta bounce. Let's give it a rating first. Bear in mind the rating applies to the book form of The Hobbit and not any other
Hobbit-related media.
No other Hobbit-related media. So, hit me.
I'll
with
go
the
first.
digits. Yeah.
I'll give it 5 out of 5 Silmarils.
Okay.
Yeah, I just find like the cover of the book where it has the little star on the Silmaril. It's like it just looks like a star. So I'm giving it 5 out of 5 stars.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, that's the most Silmarils one can get.
Well, I mean, technically it would be 3 out of 3 Silmarils. There were only 3 Silmarils.
Are you sure about that?
I'm pretty sure.
I think you just read that there were. One in the sea, one in the sky, one in the mountain.
Yeah, okay. Then I give it 3.
But you don't have to change your rating. You can rate it whatever.
No,
you
he's
want.
right. Well, I keep thinking there were 7. I've got something mixed up in my head canon.
Well, there were 7 rings
been a
for
while.
the dwarf lords in their halls of stone.
Yeah. I know
7 for
the
mortal
rings.
men doomed to die.
No, 9
9
mortal men.
9.
Yeah, that's
9.
right. The 9, yeah. In the land of Mordor, where the shadows lie.
Yeah, no, I give it 3 Silmarils out of 3
3 Silmarils.
It's
Okay.
it started off my childhood, right? And
They got you out of your Hobbit
Peter-
hole.
Peter Jackson can never take that from me.
And you can stick that in your Hobbit hole, Peter Jackson and Guillermo del Toro.
And smoke it.
Okay, Dylan, you got a rating for me?
Like the
I don't.
halfling's leaf.
I'm gonna need to think about it. Like for the first time ever, like earlier today, I was like, "Hey, I should go ahead and think about a rating so that I'll have it ready," and then I didn't do that. So I'm gonna need a moment to ruminate.
All right, I'll give my rating then. I'm going to give the Hobbit or There and Back Again by J.R.R. Tolkien the rating of all berries. Because because this was a children's story, and I think he was just writing it to entertain his kids, and it's not dissimilar to what happened at the Captain Crunch factory when they were making crunch berries. Like they messed up, or maybe they kind of knew what they were doing, and they instead of crunch berries they just did all berries. But instead of like just throwing it out, they were like, well, let's sell this as all berries. So it's kind of like The Hobbit,
and it's not just tasty for children. It's good for people of all ages.
There's no person like if somebody told me I don't like the crunch berry. I like crunch berries, but I don't like
Oops,
the
all
berries.
berries.
I wouldn't believe them. It's like, first of all,
You're
it's just
putting
Captain
me on.
Crunch. Why don't you just eat Captain Crunch? I don't believe you. That's the only reason to enjoy crunch berries.
Mike Pence sounds like somebody who would be like, "No, I do not care for the berries.
It's so true.
They're too
I do
colorful."
not care for the berries.
Mu-
I only eat the crunch when
Arms
mother's
crossed
home.
and that stern face whenever he goes through the cereal aisle.
Mother knows only
Mother
to get the plain Captain Crunch.
She knows I love the way it tears up my mouth because I've been a bad boy.
It's like his version of like self-flagellation. He
Right. He
eats
just
a bunch
eats
of dry
spoonfuls
Captain
of
Crunch.
Captain Crunch with no milk.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mother.
He probably thinks the Quaker Oats guy is like just too cheerful on that box. He's like,
He's sinful, wearing too many clothes.
I don't trust a Quaker
Too
with a
few
smile
clothes.
like that.
yeah,
Guys, I'm bad at coming up with ratings.
just give me something.
Well,
So while
give
Dylan
me-
thinks
give-
of his
give me a
rating, this
moment.
would be
Just
a
give
good
me a moment.
opportunity to remind you to send hate mail to bookclubcast@gmail.com. There you can tell me how wrong I am on my Tolkien lore or how wrong I am about films in Hollywood and how much they suck. You can also find us on Reddit at r/bookclubcast.com. You can find us on iTunes. Give us that 5 Silmaril rating and then write into the comment what you really think of us. We don't care. We don't take it just rolls off our backs. Any other thing I'm missing there, Ansel, while Dylan's thinking?
No.
I got something.
No, good. All right, he's got something.
My rating for this book, The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien, is the 5, and I'm going to pull from another great work of art, and it's the 5 Infinity Gems from
Okay.
Thanos.
Yeah.
Which, I actually haven't seen that movie, but I hear it's very good and a work of art, much like The Hobbit. And yeah, it's that's what I got.
Okay.
All
so
right.
the final rating for The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien is 3 out of 3 Silmarils, all berries, and the 5 Infinity Stones. 5 out of 5 Infinity Stones. It's pretty tough. I mean, not tough. Pretty great rating.
That's a top-notch rating from Book Club, definitely.
Congratulations, J.R.R. Tolkien.
We love us some
if you're still
Hobbit.
with us, congratulations on receiving what might be our highest rating yet for a book.
It really is the greatest adventure.
It really is fantastic. Yeah, it is not aged. I mean, it is a eternal classic or whatever that said on Goodreads. Okay, let's wrap this up, guys. Next week's book, Elijah. Sorry to withhold the conch, but we're going to have a special guest in the club with us who wants us to read Earth Abides by J.R.R. Stewart. Earth Abides by J.R.R. Stewart. It's a sci-fi classic that has slipped under my radar. Never heard of it before. So very much looking forward to that. That's the genre that I feel like I should be reading
All right.
genre that
Earth
speaks to my-
Abides by. Earth Abides by who?
George R. Stewart, and I've already
George
bought
R.
it.
Stewart.
I
Is
bought
that
it in,
one R?
Yes, George R. Stewart. Yeah,
Okay. All right.
he's a maverick.
Then I'll give it a go.
Mav R. Ick, like Chuck E. Cheese. The R stands for Rentertainment. Anyway, okay, so that does it for this episode of Book Club. Join us in 2 weeks when we talk about Earth Abides by George R. Stewart. Very much looking forward to that.
And did you mention, I'm sorry, I wasn't listening to you. Did you mention that we're going to have a special guest with us?
We will have a special guest to talk about it.
So tune in.
Tune in, especially if you're that special guest. We'll need you to tune in.
So let's sign off.
All right. Until next time, thank you. Ta-ta for now. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for being here.
The greatest adventure is what lies ahead. Today and tomorrow are yet to be said. The chances, the changes are all yours to make. The mold of your life is in your hands to break. The greatest adventure is there if you're bold. Let go of the mold that life makes you hold. To measure the meaning can make you delay. It's time you stop thinking and wasting the day. The man who's a dreamer and never takes leave, who thinks of a world that is just make-believe, will never know passion, will never know pain. Who sits by the window will one day see rain. The greatest adventure is what lies ahead. Today and tomorrow are yet to be said. The chances, the changes are all yours to make. The mold of your life is in your hands to break. The greatest adventure is what lies ahead.